Everyone thought Pastor Creflo Dollar had everything under control: the influence, the wealth, the global following. He appeared to have it all. A towering figure of faith and prosperity, he projected the kind of unshakable confidence that only someone who truly believed they were chosen for something greater could have. But behind that polished image, behind the flawless exterior, something was quietly collapsing. Piece by piece, in recent months, the very man who had once preached about unwavering prosperity found himself forced to confront consequences he never expected. And as painful truths began to surface, Creflo Dollar was faced with the one thing he had never prepared his followers for: the possibility that everything he had built, everything he had claimed, might have been rooted in a devastating mistake. The rise of Creflo Dollar didn't begin in a mansion, a megachurch, or a television studio. His journey started in the modest surroundings of College Park, Georgia. Born on January 28, 1962, Creflo Augustus Dollar Jr. grew up in a home shaped by discipline, faith, and a strong work ethic. His father was a police officer, and his mother worked in the cafeteria of Kathleen Mitchell Elementary School, a job that seemed ordinary enough at the time, but would later become an integral part of Creflo's story. As a child, Creflo never envisioned himself becoming a pastor. His dreams were centered on playing professional football. The idea of standing before a congregation and preaching the word of God was as distant as the stars. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. In the early 1980s, Creflo enrolled at West Georgia College with hopes of making it in the world of sports. However, those dreams were shattered when a serious injury ended his football career before it had truly begun. That injury marked the first in a series of events that would alter the course of his life. As he recovered from the injury, Creflo found himself attending Bible study sessions, not out of a deep spiritual yearning, but simply to fill the quiet space left by his shattered dreams. It was in those sessions that something extraordinary happened. One day, Creflo felt a profound sense of rebirth, an awakening that would change everything. It wasn't an audible voice, but an overwhelming feeling that God had something different in store for him. That moment of clarity marked the beginning of a new path. Creflo's involvement with the church deepened, and soon he found himself leading his own Bible study group. These gatherings, initially small, began to grow at an astonishing rate. Among those who attended was a young woman named Taffy Bolton. She would later become his wife and a lifelong partner in ministry. By 1984, Creflo earned a degree in educational therapy and began working at the Bronner Psychiatric Institute, helping those with learning challenges. Despite his success in this field, Creflo could not escape the growing pull toward ministry. He knew deep down that he was meant for something bigger. In 1986, Creflo made the pivotal decision that would forever alter the course of his life. He founded World Changers Ministries Christian Center right there in the cafeteria of Kathleen Mitchell Elementary School, the same place where his mother had once served meals to students and where he had once been part of the school's first Black integration group. The first service saw just 8 attendees, yet the message he preached, a message of hope, empowerment, and the possibility of transformation, resonated deeply with those who heard it. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the crowds began to grow. As the congregation expanded, so did Creflo's ambition. What began in a humble cafeteria would soon grow into one of the largest and most influential megachurches in America. His message grounded in the belief that prosperity and success were attainable through faith, would take him to global heights. But as he rose, so too did the cracks in the foundation, cracks that would one day widen and unravel the very empire he had built. The prosperity gospel, the central doctrine that Creflo Dollar preached, became the very engine that fueled his rise. It was a doctrine that promised financial abundance, success, and the fulfillment of God's will, all through faith, positive confession, and especially generous giving. Creflo's teachings on tithing, the practice of giving 10% of one's income to the church, became a cornerstone of his ministry. For struggling families, it seemed like hope. For believers desperate for a breakthrough, it appeared to be the divine strategy they had been waiting for. Every sermon, every broadcast, every promise of financial prosperity and miraculous breakthroughs drove the message deeper into the hearts of millions. By 1991, Dollar's ministry had grown so large that he renamed it World Changers Church International, a reflection of the international reach he believed God had given him. Radio and television broadcasts followed, culminating in the creation of Changing Your World, a television program that brought Creflo's teachings into millions of homes across the world. By the mid-1990s, Creflo was no longer just a pastor in College Park. He was an internationally recognized televangelist with followers in Africa, Canada, India, and the United Kingdom. The crowning achievement of Creflo's rise came in 1995 with the completion of the World Dome, an 8,500-seat sanctuary that cost nearly $20 million to build. He proudly stated that the church was built without the aid of bank financing, a testament, he claimed, to what faith and giving could accomplish. To many, the World Dome stood as a symbol of everything Creflo Dollar had achieved. It was a manifestation of his success, the physical embodiment of his message of prosperity. By the mid-2000s, Creflo's ministry had exploded in size. World Changers Church International boasted over 30,000 members, with an annual revenue of nearly $70 million. Dollar's influence spread far beyond the United States, with churches and followers across the globe. He dreamed of creating 500 fellowship churches worldwide, expanding the reach of his ministry even further. Yet, as the ministry grew, so too did the questions surrounding his personal wealth and lifestyle. Dollar's lifestyle became the subject of increasing scrutiny. His followers, many of whom lived on modest incomes, found it hard to reconcile his luxurious lifestyle with the message he preached. While the average household in College Park earned around $29,000 a year, Creflo Dollar owned homes worth millions of dollars. His Fayetteville estate, valued at $3.4 million, sat on 182.5 acres of prime land and included a massive fountain, a pool, and a private gated driveway. It was a property that stood in stark contrast to the lives of many of his followers. In addition, Dollar owned a high-rise condo in New York City's Time Warner Center, which he had purchased for $2.5 million and later sold for a $1.25 million profit. In his garage were multiple Rolls-Royces, including one valued at $460,000. For his critics, these luxuries symbolized the greed and excess they saw in the prosperity gospel. But Dollar insisted that these possessions were signs of God's blessing, proof that his faith had manifested in tangible, material ways. He even defended his ownership of a private jet, a Gulfstream G3, by arguing that commercial airlines simply couldn't accommodate his schedule. The jet, which had been plagued by mechanical failures, including one over the Pacific Ocean, was, in Dollar's view, a necessity for his ministry. Yet as Dollar's wealth grew, So did the criticism. Church watchdog groups began to raise concerns about financial transparency. Ministry Watch repeatedly gave his organization an F rating for financial transparency, citing his refusal to disclose basic audited records. Between 2007 and 2011, the U.S. Senate Finance Committee launched an investigation into Dollar and several other televangelists, questioning whether ministry funds were being used for personal gain. Dollar refused to provide financial documents, asserting that the government had no right to examine his records. Legally, he survived the investigation, but the damage to his public image was undeniable. Then came one of the most infamous moments of Creflo Dollar's career, the $65 million jet scandal. In 2015, Dollar launched Project G650, a fundraising campaign to help him purchase a Gulfstream G650 private jet, which cost $65 million. He argued that the jet wasn't about luxury, but about the necessity of carrying out God's work. His previous plane, a Gulfstream G3, had suffered numerous mechanical issues, including an engine failure over the Pacific. Dollar argued that a private jet was essential for the work God had called him to do. He launched a campaign asking 200,000 people to donate at least $300 each to fund the purchase. The backlash was immediate and intense. Critics pointed out that the G650's baggage capacity could not possibly accommodate the 100,000 pounds of food and supplies that Dollar's ministry claimed the plane would transport. Questions arose about why a pastor needed the world's most expensive private jet, especially when so many of his followers lived on much smaller incomes. Even some within the Christian community spoke out against the campaign. Gospel artist Kirk Franklin criticized Dollar's message, saying it was more about materialism than about faith. The campaign was quietly removed, but Dollar refused to back down. In a sermon shortly afterward, he boldly declared, "If I want to believe God for a 65 million plane, you cannot stop me. I'm going to dream until Jesus comes." His supporters cheered, but the scandal continued to burn. The jet scandal was not the only controversy to shake Creflo Dollar's empire. In 2012, an even more personal crisis emerged. The man who preached about discipline, faith, and divine order found himself arrested in his own home. The charge? Simple battery and cruelty to children. The incident started with a family dispute when his 15-year-old daughter called the authorities after an argument escalated. She accused him of choking her, wrestling her to the ground, and even hitting her with a shoe. Dollar, however, denied the allegations, stating that he had only restrained her after she hit him first. The charges were later dropped after he completed an anger management program, but the damage to his reputation was profound. The public image of a pastor who preached about spiritual authority and family values was deeply shaken. In 2022, Dollar made an unprecedented announcement that stunned both his followers and his critics. For decades, he had preached that tithing, the practice of giving 10% of one's income to the church, was not only an act of generosity, but a spiritual requirement. He had written books, recorded DVDs, and delivered sermons on the topic, convincing millions that tithing was the key to unlocking God's financial blessings. But in a shocking reversal, Creflo Dollar admitted that his teachings on tithing had been wrong. He told his congregation that they should throw away every book, DVD, and sermon he had produced on the subject. The idea that tithing was a divine obligation, he said, was rooted in Old Testament law and did not apply to Christians living under grace. For some, this was an act of honesty, a confession made after years of spiritual growth. For others, it felt like an admission that came far too late. Dollar's ministry had been built on the very doctrine he now rejected. The financial structure of his empire had been constructed on the teachings he now claimed were flawed. His refusal to offer refunds for the money given under these teachings, coupled with his continued display of wealth, left many questioning his sincerity. The confession didn't destroy Dollar's ministry, but it shifted how millions of people saw him. The man who once promised divine prosperity through faith and tithing now seemed to be grappling with the very teachings that had made him a global figure. The empire he had built with these teachings remained intact, but his personal narrative, once defined by certainty and prosperity, was now entangled with doubts and contradictions. Creflo Dollar's story is one of rise and fall, of faith and materialism, of promises and contradictions. It's a cautionary tale about how empires built on promises of prosperity can unravel when those promises are questioned. What do you think of Pastor Creflo Dollar's recent troubles? Should he take responsibility for the teachings he now rejects? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories just like this.